The AVRO Lancaster, an aviation legend, an icon of British engineering, the greatest British bomber of World War II. Out of the 7,377 Lancasters built, only 2 remain in airworthy condition. Kilo Bravo 726, better known as Vera, based in Canada, and Papa Alpha 474, City of Lincoln, which is kept flying regularly today in UK skies by the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight based at RAF Coningsby. PA474, the subject of this video, has carried many markings over the years, paying tribute to different Lancasters which have served in Bomber Command. Today it wears the scheme of Leader, however in this video it is painted in its previous markings, that of Thumper 3, a Lancaster which served with 617 Squadron after the famous Dams raid. Thumper 3 had a particularly interesting operational history, arriving with 617 Squadron at RAF Coningsby in November 1943. It flew 35 operational sorties, including dropping chaff off the French coast leading up to D-Day, dropping tall boy bombs on the Solmer Railway Tunnel, along with several V-weapon sites, and also took part in missions to bomb the German battleship Tirpitz, where it scored a direct hit. Thumper also carries a swastika kill marking, donating that it successfully downed a German fighter. Today's virtual airshow display will be in 3 parts. The first part will be showcasing the operation of a Lancaster from pre-flight, start-up and departure from RAF Coningsby, where it will later join with the BBMF Spitfire Mark II at Duxford. There the pair will perform a display before returning to Coningsby. The Lancaster featured in this video is a freeware FSX module produced by Plane Design. I have included the link in the description below. I have also added a number of cameras within the aircraft for the purpose of this video. However, certain areas in the module were not meant to have cameras fitted and therefore the detail in places is low. However, for a freeware module, I think it holds up very well. Let's take a look inside. During this video, I will be following the pilot checklist and pilot notes contained in AP2062 Alpha, or better known as the Pilots Notes for the Lancaster. I have tried to follow real-world procedures in all aspects, however, due to this being a simulation and the real aircraft having a crew of 7, certain parts have had to be adjusted, albeit slightly. In reality, crews would arrive at the aircraft up to 1 hour before the takeoff time to go through the many external and interior checks. For the sake of time, we will not be doing that, and instead we will skip to number 71 in the pilot checklist, the intercom, which is switched on by the radio operator.
Hey, intercom on, skipper. Thank you. Skipper to crew reporting. Bomb main reporting. Flight engineer reporting. Navigator reporting. Radio operator reporting. Mid-upper reporting. Rear gun reporting. All crew have checked in on the intercom. The flight engineer will now switch on the fuel content gauges. Fuel tank selector cocks are turned to fuel tank 1 for engine start. ailerons and pressure head are checked against the ammeter and switched off. In the case of the sim, this function is not modelled. The undercarriage lever is checked down and we check that the safety bolt is in place. Flying controls, we check full and correct movement. Aileron fully left. Aileron fully right. Elevator fully back. I'll need to lift myself up out of the seat to check this one. Elevator fully forward. Rudder fully left. And rudder fully right. Now working left to right around the cockpit. First checking that the port window moves correctly and locks in place. We switch the nav lights to on. This is a visual signal to those around the aircraft that we are intended to start. We check the autopilot is switched off and spin the autopilot control cock and engage the autopilot clutch to in. We test the operation of the windscreen de-icing pump. Check the serviceability of the magnetic compass. Check the undercarriage position indicator is working and displaying 2 green. Check that our direction compasses are correct, uncaged and synchronized. Check the boost control cutout lever is in the off position. Number 1 and 2 master fuel cocks are switched to off. Check that the ignition for all engines is off and that the boost gauge are displaying static readings. Number 3 and 4 engine master fuel cocks switched off and we switch on the flat position indicator. In the case of this sim, the switch is actually modeled backwards and therefore works when the switch is set to off. Our flaps are fully down due to the lack of hydraulic pressure when the engines are off. This is displaying correctly. We switch the radiator shutters to automatic. Check the operation of the starboard window and make sure it also locks in place. Test the operation of the throttle and check that there is free, unobstructed movement on each one. In reality, you would adjust the friction on the throttles as required. Check the function of the air screws or RPM control and check that they have full movement. Check the operation of all 3 trim controls. Switch the oxygen to on. We won't be going higher than 10,000 feet today, so we'll set that as our delivery. And lastly, stow the entrance ladder and secure the entrance door. Now to start her up. Coningsby Ground, good morning. Lancaster Memorial 1 ready to start. 7 POB, request runway and QFA please.
Memorial 1, good morning. Clear to start. QFC 999er. Runway 07 in use.
Starting 999er 07 Memorial 1. We ensure the ground flight switch is switched to ground. This is done from behind the pilot seat. The ground crew will have primed the engines and this is done from the cockpit and the flight engineer has switched on the fuel pumps for start. Crack the throttles to 1 inch open and set the RPM at max RPM. Radiators are automatic and booster coil master switch is on. Fuel on engine free. Ignition on free. Engine free clear. Contact free. Check the revs are coming up, make sure they're stabilised at 1200 RPM and we allow the engines to warm up. Fuel on 4, ignition on 4, 4 clear, contact 4. Fuel on 2, ignition on 2, 2 clear, contact 2. fuel on 1, ignition on 1 clear, contact 1. The engines are running fine, so now the booster coil switch can be switched off. The ground flight switch is now set to flight, and the ground crew will remove the GPU. As the engines are running, hydraulic pressure will begin to build up, and this will allow it to close the bomb bay doors and raise the flap. The bomb bay door handle is located under the pilot's left armrest, which we raise. Flap sensor up. Check the operation of the vacuum change cock, and that is reading above 4 on both. Check the temperatures. The oil temperature needs to be over 15 degrees and the coolant temperature over 40 degrees. The fuel booster pumps have been set to off as the engine started, and the fuel tanks are now switched over to number 2 for engine run up and take off. Before running up the engines, it's advised to do a precautionary check on each magneto before we increase the power. When we do this, we're looking for any significant drop in RPM, up to 150 RPM is normal. We switch the radiators to open for the engine run-up. For each engine, we now increase the power up to the static boost reading of 0 and check the operation of the constant speed of power, moving it through the full range and looking for the change in RPM. Whilst also at the power setting, we check the magnetos as before. We do this on all 4 engines. At the same time this is done, the flight engineer will also be checking that the generators on engine number 2 and 3 are charging correctly. There is a noticeable higher drop in RPM with the magnetos on number 4. This is nothing serious enough to warrant the shutting down of the engine, however we will need to report this when we get back. Lastly, move the throttle to fully closed and check the minimum idling RPM before returning it back to 1200 RPM. Now we're ready to taxi. Coningsby Ground Memorial 1, taxi for the hangar 4 apron with code Alpha.
Memorial 1, Coningsby Ground, taxi runway 07, USE 999er. Alpha correct.
999, taxi 07, Memorial 1. We're looking to our imaginary marshal now. We would give him the signal to remove the chalk and then check around the aircraft is clear. The invisible marshal is happy now, so we can start taxiing out. We need to check our brakes as soon as possible before we build up speed. All is good, so now we can taxi out to the hold at runway 07. As we taxi out, the crew will be going through pre-takeoff sets. Trim, elevator set 2 divisions nose heavy to hit the tail, come up on takeoff. Aileron and with the trim set at neutral. The throttle and RPM controls will be tightened. Supercharger is set in low gear. Air intake control set as required. RPM set to maximum. Fuel set on number 2 tanks and the booster pumps on. The cross-feed cock is set to on. The direction indicator is set to the magnetic compass and uncaged. Autopilot clutches in and control clock is spun. Set the flaps to the takeoff position, which is 20 degrees. Switch radiators to automatic. Call the tower ready for departure. Coningsby Tower, good morning, Lancaster Memorial 1 with you, ready for departure.
Memorial 1, Coningsby Tower, line up and wait.
Line up and wait, Memorial 1. Moving out onto the runway, aligning the aircraft on the centre line and moving forward to make sure the tail wheel is straight. Close both windows and lock in place, check the arm lock. We'll also check our harness. is locked.
Memorial 1 clear for takeoff, wind 0506.
Clear for takeoff, Memorial 1. We check the engines are clear by running up the static boost. Crew ready for takeoff. Release the brakes, smoothly increase power. As the speed comes up, use the control column forward to raise the tail. Speed is increasing, pull back on the control column and lift the aircraft off. Ready to climb, squeeze the brakes to stop the wheels spinning and gear up. Collapse brake to 10 degrees. And collapse fully up. Decrease the power now to static boost, but maintaining the shuttle flight. A few booster pumps at this point can now be switched off. Memorial 1 airborne for 3.
Memorial 1.
And that's it, we're now on our way to Duxford. There we'll be joined by the Spitfire Mark II, for our display, and this will feature in part 2. See you then.